Hello, I'm going to show you how to make a vocabulary diamond again, just in case you need me to, in case you miss a lesson in class. So this week we're reading an article. It's a nonfiction article, and it is about people who live in really remote countries or remote parts of the globe and how they get library books. And it's a pretty interesting article. So our vocabulary words have to do with different kinds of libraries, and they're not the usual kind of libraries. Most of them aren't in buildings. So in order to make the diamond, I'm going to fold my paper into 4 squares, and then I am going to divide off the 4 squares like you've seen me do in the past. I'm going to raise this up a little bit. And then, there we go. Now you can see a little bit better. And then I'm also going to do the same thing on the back side. And I'm going to put an X in every square. So this is how the front side is going to look. And I'm going to put a little lines right here for our synonyms. And that side's done. Let's do the back side. Sometimes I make the X's differently. And sometimes not. Ooh, I can hear the ice cream man. This enchanting ice cream man song. Oops, I need to do these. I think he's in the alley. Okay. So we're going to ignore that and try not to be hungry for ice cream. So first thing I'm going to do is, after I've made the lines, is write my name on my diamond. And our first word is impassable. So this is a good word for describing some of the roads that are involved in our story. And impassable means not allowing passage. And the synonym I found was restriction. Impassable is an adjective. That's the part of speech. So in the article, some of the places where the librarians have to go are impassable. I'll give you an example. One of the places mentioned in the article is located up near the North Pole. And so there are people who live on small islands that are up near the North Pole, and the islands are iced over. The water freezes over and is iced. They use boats to deliver library books, and because in the wintertime it's iced over, it is difficult for people to get books because the water freezes too. So I'm going to just draw some little mountain ranges that kind of have snow on them, right? To give you the idea of something being impassable. Or maybe there's water too that can make getting through impassable frozen water, especially in this case. Our second word is devour. So if you have a difficult time getting library books, when you finally get your book, you're going to just devour your book. You're going to read it as fast as you can. Right? Devour means to eat up hungrily. And devour is a verb. It's an action word. Usually it means food, but in this case, we're meaning books, that you really want to read your book. You're excited. When I was a kid, we would go to the library about once a week. And my mom would always let me go into the adult section of the library to get one book. And it always made me feel like I was a grown up. And so I would devour all my kids' books really fast, and then I'd spend my time focusing on the one adult book that my mom would let me get. So I'm going to use gobble as the synonym. So if I were to draw a picture of that, I would be devouring a book, which means that I would have my reading glasses. I have reading glasses now that I'm an old lady. So I would have my reading glasses. I would have my book out. And so devouring means you really are enjoying reading something. You can't put it down. So we'll just draw a whole bunch of books here. Okay. Our next word is virtual. We use that word kind of a lot, right? And we're doing virtual school right now. We're not really in person. We're not seeing each other, but that doesn't mean that it's any less real, right? So virtual is an adjective. And virtual means implied. And it means not real. But even though it's not real, it's in effect. So even though we're not at school, we're still, in effect, we still have school, right? Even though we're not seeing each other than on a screen, we still are, in effect, we have school, right? It counts that we're at school. So virtual tends to imply a computer. Jeff's cleaning our doorknob. He's wiping down our doorknob right now. So I drew an old school computer. Here's my little keyboard. Here's my mouse. Right? So sometimes things that are virtual imply that there's like an online component to them, right? Sometimes when we say virtual, we're implying that we're using a computer. All right, our fourth word is extremes. And extremes, that's a noun. It can also be an adjective. Let's put adjective on there too. I think the definition is more of an adjective definition. So it means far removed from average. And our synonym is excesses. So we're going to be talking about different places where people lived. So, for example, this isn't in the article, but let's say that you lived in a faraway place in the United States and you lived way out in the country, and we were talking about where you lived, and maybe you lived right down here in the tip of Mexico, coming down here, right? So maybe you lived right here in Mexico, and then maybe someone else lived up here. So they lived kind of, these places are kind of in extreme, they're in extreme distance or far apart, right? So that's one way of kind of discussing extremes. In the story, they're going to talk about how far apart or how far away libraries or the sources of books are. So you're going to see that in some countries they use cars and they use boats or trucks. Some countries deliver library books with horses. Some places they mail the books. In the article, they talk about mailing the books, and the post office becomes the library, right? Like you order your books at the post office, and then they get dropped off at the post office. So we're just talking about different places that are far removed, right? That's what an extreme is. Okay, our next word is preserve. Preserve is a verb, and it means to protect. And it's to keep alive. Oops. I'm sorry, that was the synonym. I'm going to put the definition here. To keep alive or in existence. So I'm going to switch these. This was the synonym. Sorry, someone tried to walk in the room and it threw me for a loop. This is the definition, and this is the synonym. So preserving something means that you're saving it. A lot of animals are endangered. We talk about preserving and protecting animals. But in this case, it's libraries that we're protecting, right? The ability for people to get new books without having to buy them, right? A library is kind of an awesome system of being able to get new books without having to spend money on buying new books. So if you live in a remote place where there aren't any libraries, then you're not going to be able to get as many books to look at and to read, right? And if you're a little kid, that's going to impact your reading ability. So part of this story is talking about how libraries get preserved so that kids can still get all of the books that they need to learn new things. So let's see, what picture could we draw? When I think of preserve, another word that reminds me of preserve is jam. In fact, sometimes jams are actually called preserves because you take the fruit and you put it in a jar and you protect it, and so you can eat it later. So I'm going to remember preserve because I know that jam is called a preserve. So if I had a shelf of jam jars, so preserving something means to protect it. All right. Our next word is obtain. Obtain means to acquire through effort. And attain, which sounds a lot like obtain, was the synonym I had. Obtain is a verb, it's an action word. Right? So getting something to acquire something through effort, these library books are definitely acquired through effort, right? It takes huge effort to get them. So especially to the boat or I love the title comes from the story of the librarian riding a camel, right? So, and then there's mention of a book boat. So obtaining a book when all you have is a boat to deliver books, that's a pretty big accomplishment to be able to get a book from a book boat. All right, remote. In this case, remote is an adjective. It's not the thing that you use to turn on your TV. And it means far apart. Situated distantly. And isolated would be a good synonym for that. So, remote just means you may live someplace that's not near a town or near a city where there can be a library, right? So if you live someplace that's really distant, let's say you had a map here and you were you lived up here, but the nearest library was way over here. And you had to drive to the library and it took you a day to get to the library, then the library would be very remote. It might be easier for the library to mail you books. I know that sounds crazy to us because our town we live in a small town, a small city, but we have 2 libraries. I have a library up near my house, the Freedom Branch, and then there's also the library right near the school. Okay. Avid is our last word. Avid is an adjective. And it means showing great enthusiasm. Ardent is a good synonym for that. So, an avid reader is somebody that loves reading all the time. They constantly have a book that they're reading. I am an avid reader because I usually have 2 or 3 books that I'm reading. One of them that I'm listening to. I like to listen to books being read to me, and then I'm usually reading 1 or 2 as well at the same time. So an avid reader might have a big, huge pile of books that they're reading. Like if you had a nightstand, this is what my nightstand looks like because I like to read before I go to bed. So you might have Harry Potter, You might have Island of the Blue Dolphins. You might have some other book that has a squiggly title on the side. Right? So an avid reader is somebody who loves reading and always has books around. There are other things that you can be avid at. Sometimes avid gets used to describe people who like bird watching. I could say I'm an avid ceramics fan. I love working with clay, and I love looking at other people's work when they work with clay. So avid, you could be an avid soccer player, you could be an avid athlete, or you could be an avid fan. Maybe you like watching basketball games. So avid gets used for an assortment of reasons or with an assortment of interests. All right, hopefully that helped you make your vocabulary diamond. And remember, you can always stop and pause if you missed a word or two. And remember, I messed up on this. Protect is the synonym, and to keep alive or in existence is the definition. Okay? I don't want you to mess up when you're working on your Thursday vocabulary sheet. All right, I will talk to you later. And I hope you really enjoy the story. I think as far as having libraries all over the world, there are a lot of really creative solutions for people that need to get books. And the article is really interesting to see the creative solutions, to see how well people problem solve the problem of living remotely and not having a nearby library. So I hope you enjoy the article that we're going to read. Talk to you later.